talk in here!
Get away from her, you bitch!
Real Chat Podcast presents the 100 Greatest Movies. Movie number 81, Sight Club. Oh, sorry, The Social Network.
Sight Club? This is not in my notes. Jesus Christ.
Wanna have control. Want a perfect body. Want a perfect soul. I want you to notice when I'm not around. You're so very special.
I need to do something substantial in order to get the attention of the clubs.
Why?
Because they're exclusive and fun, and they lead to a better life.
People want to go on the internet and check out their friends, so why not build a website that offers that? Friends, pictures, profiles.
I'm talking about taking the entire social experience of college and putting it online.
Site got 2,200 hits within 2 hours.
22,000.
This idea is potentially worth millions of dollars.
Millions? You stole our website.
They're saying we stole the Facebook.
I know what it says.
So did we?
$1 million isn't cool. You know what's cool? $1 billion.
You're going to get left behind. It's moving faster than any of us ever imagined
Get
it would.
left behind.
Let's sue him in federal court.
I can't wait to stand over your shoulder and watch you write us a check.
If you guys were the inventors of Facebook, you'd have invented Facebook.
Is there anything that you need to tell me?
Your actions could have permanently destroyed everything I've been working on.
We have been working on.
Did you like being a joke? Do you want to go back to that? Mark!
This is our time.
You're being accused of intentionally breaching security, violating copyrights, violating individual privacy.
Your best friend is suing you for $600 million.
As for the charges, I believe I deserve some recognition from this board.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
I don't understand.
Which part?
I don't belong.
Everybody, welcome to episode 84 of the Real Chat Podcast, a podcast that promises cinephiles, whether here or abroad, the real world as we know it. 2010's The Social Network is a film about a bunch of unsympathetic, amoral, sexist young white men talking about a very dry subject matter for 2 hours. I call myself a David Fincher fan, but try as I might, I just couldn't get into The Social Network this time around. And boy, is it dated already. Which is interesting in a sense, as I remember thinking it was quite competent and somewhat relevant back in 2010. This movie is responsible for the current trend of amoral jerks make $1 billion movies. It's literally just about some asshole making $1 billion. That's it. He's not even poor when he starts. He's at Harvard, for God's sakes. He just knows people who are richer than him, and he wants to be better than them at being rich. Wow, a genius idea for a film. Was it Aaron Sorkin's far too clever writing? Was it Jesse Eisenberg's weirdly detached, I don't know if he's acting, or just really like that acting? Or maybe it was just that I couldn't get over how exasperatingly dramatic it tried to make something like the creation of bloody Facebook. I can't argue against its technical merits. Fincher knows how to put a film together. We all know that. But for whatever reason, the movie just failed to connect with me. My name is Adam Stolfo, and I'm joined here by big David Fincher fan, Mr. Andrew McCaskill. Andrew, how you doing?
Well, I'm incredibly disappointed with you.
Already?
And questioning our friendship as we speak.
I did warn Andrew before we hit the record button today that, hopefully I wouldn't offend him coming in with the claws out today. But Andrew, yeah, great to have you on board for this one, mate.
Thank you.
Did any of that intro reside with you at all, or you have the opposite opinion today?
Yeah, look, I don't know if I agree with a few of those points.
Yes.
Not just because I'm a Fincher fan, but I don't know. I think that the film is about a deeply selfish, kind of almost Asperger's type person who is also quite brilliant. And is an interesting character to explore in a story.
Yes.
And of course, Facebook is one of the most massive creations in the last 20 years. So that's taken the world by storm.
It's going to be an interesting conversation today, Andrew.
Yeah,
Let's put it that
for
way.
sure.
Yeah,
but by no means is this one of my favourite Fincher films. So.
No problem. No, I didn't think it was. Definitely not. And joining us as well, the returning Miss Penny Jelly.
You have my attention.
Indeed. Now, Penny, am I right in saying this, that you're not actually on Facebook? Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. But I
Right.
do exist as a person, and I do actually have friends in real life.
Well, that's
But
the main thing.
I'm not on Facebook, have never been on Facebook.
No.
What's this film about?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the big deal?
Well, that's the thing, that the film overall, it's not really about Facebook. I really do just have to start this episode, guys, with sort of stating that Facebook hasn't helped Real Chat at all either as well. So
this is where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Taking it personally.
No, definitely not. But it had to be mentioned because other social media platforms have helped us a lot more than Facebook has.
Yeah.
So bloody hell, Mark Zuckerberg, help the podcast out, please.
He's just taken a $19 billion loss, though. So I don't know if he's...
So we'll mention that as well on today's episode, Penny. But just before I go on, guys, just to remind our listeners to please rate and review us on iTunes. We can't get enough of that at the moment, and we are falling a little bit behind. So please help us out with that. So this episode is part of our 100 Greatest Movies series based on Empire Magazine's 2017 article of the same name. So on a fall night in 2003, Harvard undergrad and computer programming genius Mark Zuckerberg sits down at his computer and heatedly begins working on a new idea. In a fury of blogging and programming, what begins in his dorm room as a small site among friends soon becomes a global social network and a revolution in communication. A mere 6 years and 500 million friends later, Mark Zuckerberg is the youngest billionaire in history. But for this entrepreneur, success leads to both personal and legal complications. So, Penny, I'm going to start over here with your good self. Social network, initial thoughts, please.
It's interesting. When I first saw this film, and I'm a massive David Fincher fan as well, so let's just put that out on the table.
Yep.
So I'm taking no offense from this, from the opening.
So some of his big films like Fight Club, Seven, Panic Room, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. The Game.
Yeah.
Big Fincher fan. I think he's sort of had some really great hits and some pretty big misses. But for me, when I first saw this film, I was like, well, take it or leave it. But upon rewatching it, and I've rewatched it a number of times since watching it at the cinema, I enjoy it more. So for me, I was really looking forward to watching this again.
So in other words, the reverse to myself. Because
I would say so.
I felt probably more like you do now, back in 2010 when I first saw this film.
Yeah.
Right? But I haven't really seen it since. But boy, is it rubbing me the wrong way 8 years later. So this is going to be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I'm interested to sort of unpack that because it's interesting because it's a film that you know that you're watching a film.
Yeah.
Like there is no doubt about it. You are watching dynamic dialogue within a David Fincher film. Like you're really aware that you're in a film and you're in a film for that moment of time, and then you sort of get released from it and you're like, oh, people don't talk like that, and wow, there is actually a Facebook out there in the world. So it's quite an interesting endeavor.
Yeah, can I just make mention as well that the main star in this movie, I can't stand the man.
He's difficult to watch.
He grates me the wrong way, right? And yeah, Jesse Eisenberg, we haven't done that many of his films on Real Chat, but one I don't think you've seen, Andrew, was Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice as good old Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like that movie, as everyone who listened to the episode knows, but he drove me crazy in that film. I don't mind him in a couple of films that I quite like Zombieland and stuff like that. But when your star grates with you the way that Jesse Eisenberg grates with me, it really hampers the entire movie. I don't know what it is, but, we all have our actors and actresses that just fit into that criteria.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, you're just not on board with them and they grate on you.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that you have some, Andrew.
Yeah. Got a handful.
So it really makes watching the movie really excruciating this time around for me.
Well, yeah, if that's the case with Jesse, then it's going to make it a very hard watch for you.
Yeah. So what about yourself, Andrew? Initial thoughts?
Yeah, like I enjoyed it the first time I saw it in the cinema, and I've seen it, I own it on Blu-ray. And it's a film, it's a technical film. I think Fincher's going through a phase in his current filmography where he's so good at what he does that it's almost about the process more than the story. He's just such a technician and such a clinical director. Like, I think he's become almost more, he has become more clinical, more, everything's factory sealed. There's not an earthiness or a kind of texture to them. They're just so manufactured to his standards. And this is, a perfect example. I think this followed the failure of the curse of the curious.
The Curse of Benjamin Button.
The Curse of Benjamin Button.
Yes, that was a definite miss for me as well.
Yeah,
me too.
which was probably like his first real miss, I'd say. And so I don't know if there's anything to that, but it just, this film is really controlled, and he's made the same kind of film since then. It's just everything's very, very dry and minimalistic, and to me it does rub me up a little bit the wrong way. And I don't know, like, it's just a film at the end of the day. It's not like a thesis. You know, these films are starting to become a little bit too precious.
So what the films he's done post this as well, there was The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and Gone Girl.
Yes.
Is that it?
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Is he working on something at the moment?
He's doing his TV stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Mindhunter.
Oh, yeah.
Which is great, which is really good, but it's the same aesthetic, you know, like it's just, and there was Zodiac as well, which...
I think that was 2007.
Yeah, so that was before...
before this.
Definitely before this, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and House of Cards as well came out.
House of Cards, yeah. So he's done a fair bit of TV stuff. It seems like he's mainly focused in TV at the moment because, I mean, everything is there at the moment. Cinema's certainly in a troubling state. So, yeah, what I'm trying to say is that, this is not one of my favourite Fincher films. I do enjoy it. It's very entertaining. It's very well made. But, I don't know. I just think he has shifted gears somewhat, and it's not as enjoyable to watch as his earlier work.
Right, so you saw this originally in 2010?
Yes.
Yeah, did you like it more then, or do you like it more now?
I think, I liked it more the first time because it's so intelligent and it's so quick, and you're just totally immersed in trying to, I don't know, follow this very quick film, and it's just people talking at 100 miles per hour, and, you know, his films are just so quick, they don't give you any time to really kind of just soak it up. So, you know, when you see it again now, and I've seen it several times, it seems like his interest is more in the... just not the human aspect. It's about the ambition and I don't know, the awfulness of people, and it's hard to kind of really want to care about anyone in this film. They're not very likable people.
Well, that is one of my biggest gripes with it.
Yeah.
And any movie in which you feel that way, and I know we touched upon it a little bit, Penny, when we looked at Raging Bull, how the main character in that is very unlikable.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the aging version of Adam Stolfo. I don't know, but these movies aren't. You know, they're not sitting with me as well as they used to. You know, maybe I'm finding these tough stories with these unlikable people a little bit less tolerable as I'm getting older. You know what I mean? Like, I can't quite put my finger on it.
Yeah,
but I think I like these films a lot more in the past.
Yeah, I think these films sort of aim for the head, not the heart. So, well, for me, I'm enjoying it on a very sort of super hyper intelligent kind of level, and looking at all of the artistic endeavors of all of the filmmaking that's been brought to this project. Yeah, this is not a very likable film. It's not an enjoyable story. It's not a likable character that you're following. It's quite challenging and grating. But for me overall, it comes true.
The Social Network was released on the 1st of October 2010 in the US and the 28th of October 2010 in Australia. It was shot primarily in California and Massachusetts in the US. This is pretty low, really, even for 2010, isn't it? $40 million? That's quite streamlined. But here's the key thing, it did gross $224.9 million worldwide. So it was certainly a success in the true sense of the word. So we've talked about him a bit already, but the director of the film was David Fincher. Andrew, it's been some time, but the only other time we've looked at a David Fincher film on Real Chat was back in episode 3.
Wow.
Which was your choice of movie from memory as well, which we released that in January 2015 to give you an idea of how long it's been between drinks for a Fincher film.
Yeah, right.
So just a little bit of, we did talk about him in detail on that episode, but David Andrew Leo Fincher is an American director and producer of films, television, and music videos. He was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Director for The Curious Case of Benjamin Button and this film, The Social Network. For the latter, he won the Golden Globe Award for Best Director and the BAFTA Award for Best Direction. He's also known for having directed the psychological thrillers Seven, The Game, Fight Club, Panic Room, and Gone Girl, and the mystery thrillers Zodiac, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, as well as being instrumental in the creation of the Netflix series House of Cards and Mindhunter, which you guys spoke about just before. His films Zodiac and The Social Network are somewhat surprisingly ranked in BBC's 100 Greatest Films of the 21st Century.
I think Zodiac is his masterpiece.
Okay, yeah.
I'd agree with that for sure.
Yeah, but was it well received, though? Or is it mainly...
Critically, I think it didn't do very well at the box office, but critically acclaimed for sure.
Yeah, okay. So, Andrew, maybe a little bit of a refresher on how you feel about David Fincher and also maybe how you feel about his work here in The Social Network.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have a great admiration for him, and it's funny that he was nominated for an Oscar for The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, because it's, probably his most commercial film.
But probably his least liked one.
Yeah, which it says a
Yeah.
lot about the Academy Awards. You know, they do just select the most kind of cookie cutter type films, and Fincher certainly does not fit in that mold in any of his work. He's always pushing barriers, whether it be technically or in his subject matter. He likes to explore incredibly dark characters and worlds, and certainly make an audience really work for it, which I really, really love in his work. And obviously there's a massive backstory with, you know, his first film, Alien 3, and the disaster that was.
Which is often omitted from write-ups, like even the one that I've done here.
Yeah.
Because he wanted it to be removed. He had such a poor experience working on that film.
Yeah.
That he's actually removed
Disowned
it.
pretty
He's
much.
disowned it, yeah. And it's developed quite a cult following since as well.
Yeah.
You know? Maybe not by the hardcore Alien fans, but it's certainly got a lot more appreciation than it would have in its time of release, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you compare it to everything that's come since.
Yeah.
It's looking pretty good. But so he started from a pretty tough, you know, he was an incredibly successful music director, obviously. He was like one of the greats, and then found his way into film, and had a very tough education working with 20th Century Fox. And then Seven was his baby, you know, where he had full control, he knew what to do, and he's been a massive success ever since. And pretty much he gets full control and full say on all of his creative work, and not many people would get in his way now because he's so successful. So yeah, he's had a really successful career, and he's always an exciting filmmaker to watch. So yeah, I think he's kind of almost at the next chapter now in his career. He's done the TV stuff, and be interesting to see what's next for him. In terms of this film, yeah, it's the start of like his kind of digital age, I guess, where he's really utilizing a tool that he can, take multiple takes, which we all know he loves to do, and lots of incredible effects as well, which he can achieve with these cameras.
He is all over this movie. You can definitely tell that it's a David Fincher movie. I mean, it has a particular look, doesn't it?
Well, yeah.
It's very, very well crafted.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's as I said before, it's just meticulous. You're almost on edge because, you know, you don't want there to be an imperfection. You know, you're waiting for something to be flawed in some way, but you're never going to get that in a Fincher film. And I think, you know, that it kind of loses something in that, which sounds strange, but they just do feel like they're kind of scientific studies of human beings, these films.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, even though these characters aren't particularly likable, and there's nothing really wrong with a film exploring that, I think that's good. It's interesting. It just seems like, that they're in like a little kind of jar, and we're kind of like poking, you know, sticks at them and making a study of these people rather than actually relating to them on some kind of human level.
Definitely. And what about yourself, Penny?
Yeah, I absolutely love Fincher, and I think that his back catalogue is some of my favourite works. And I think that I don't think it's too fine a point to say that he's kind of the Hitchcock of our time. He's so meticulous and knows exactly how to get a particular performance out of an actor. And I think it's interesting, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but Jesse Eisenberg, I don't particularly like either. So he's the perfect guy to play Mark Zuckerberg in this film. And
Don't get me wrong, because I agree 100% with what you're saying.
It's excellent casting. You can't fault the casting.
I can't. No.
But for this film would not work if it wasn't for Fincher and if it wasn't for Sorkin. So I mean, it's pretty bland in terms of its in terms of the story outline. You know, I'm not particularly interested in how a multi-billionaire got his start. Like, it's just not an interesting story to me. It's not particularly challenging or something that I aspire to. I'm not even on Facebook myself, so I can't even sort of get an insight into there. So I'm purely going in to see this film based on the fact that it's a Fincher film. So yeah, I think it is so meticulous, and it's brought to life in such an interesting way. I mean, he's got a particular scene where it's just people talking over a desk for the majority of the film, but he makes it interesting. The way that he blocks out his camera work, the way that he gets his actors to perform in a particular way with multiple takes. So it's a really intricate insects in a jar. I think you're actually right there, Andrew, in terms of, yeah, he's actually poking the performances as well, and the performances are already been scripted by Aaron Sorkin. So it's a really head film. Like you are in your head the entire time.
So let me ask you this, as the Fincher fans at the table, I mean, we all are to an extent, but would you guys say that if this film was not done by Fincher, that you would probably like it less?
100%.
If I was judging the film as it is, but it was made by someone else.
I just want to know about how much, the talent and the craftsmanship of David Fincher helps elevate, I think, this very bland movie.
Well, I think, yeah, that's right. I think that no one would be really talking about it if it wasn't for him, because he does make anything a lot more interesting and a lot more complex. because it's dry enough as it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, someone with not an essence of skill like Fincher would struggle, I think, to kind of make this engaging.
So we mentioned him a little bit, Penny, but the writer of the film, well, the screenplay is written by Aaron Sorkin, and it's very loosely based on a book called The Accidental Billionaires, The Founding of Facebook, A Tale of Sex, Money, Genius, and Betrayal from 2009, written by Ben Mesrich.
Mesrich. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
So not real chat strength, is it, Penny? Surnames. We seem to fumble and flub over so many names. But what can you tell us about the story and particularly Aaron Sorkin's screenplay here?
Yeah, well, I think that the screenplay was sort of being written at the same time as the book was actually, before it was even a book. So this story was in the works and the ideas of two men at the same time. And even though Sorkin based it on Mesrich's book, he did a lot of his own research and then decided to really elevate that and concentrate and switch backwards and forwards between them. Like, he's turned it into a non-linear fiction, non-linear narrative, which is, for me, always interesting, and it's a way to really spice up the work. From what you can say, very loosely based on it. And I think that it's sort of taking a real life story and just spicing it up. It's Mark Zuckerberg's, and all of the people portrayed in this film have said, it's a very interesting fictional tale based slightly on reality. So you've definitely got the Sorkin quality in there in terms of the fast-paced dialogue, in terms of unnaturalistic and unrealistic backwards and forwards. I mean, that's kind of what I like about the film. I think that if it was told naturalistic, it just wouldn't be interesting at all. So basically, Sorkin got the idea, decided to wait for the book to come out, and then went back and sort of revised based on what the book sort of led him to bring these characters to life.
Would you say that the screenplay itself was well crafted?
I think that that's the perfect marriage between the writer and the director in this film, though. I think that on its own merit, the story alone would not interest me. If it was an Aaron Sorkin film alone, probably wouldn't interest me. If it was a David Fincher, I'd go and see it. So I think Fincher brings Sorkin's vision to life, and sort of they really collaborated on this as well, and there's a lot of sort of during production work where they collaborated and really tweaked as well, as Fincher does like to do. He really likes to draw down to the bare bones and draw out the actual essence.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So I think it is the perfect collaboration. But in terms of, I mean, this could be a stage play, but it wouldn't be interesting.
No.
So it is a dry script brought to life in an interesting way through snappy dialogue, through unrealistic turns of phrases and backwards and forwards. There's no breath in there. You can't draw breath in this film. And so you sort of feel like you're being assaulted, and you feel like it's actually exciting, which it probably isn't. Like, it's about a guy being sort of brought to trial, and he's a horrible guy by other horrible guys wanting horrible money.
That's exactly right. And we will talk a little bit about shortly as well, Penny, about some of the obvious embellishments that were made, like, in regards to the real life event. And I'm sure a lot of it was hamped up for this Hollywood film.
Definitely.
I mean, it always happens.
And it needs to be. And I had a look at the original source material as well, and it's pretty dry. I mean, it's not, you sort of don't go in reading, oh my God, I'm going to be reading a thriller, which this film essentially turns into. It's kind of like a thriller, like what is going to happen next? And it's just builds. And I think that in terms of a true story maker, like this film rings true. You've got all of the tropes. You meet your heroes, or anti-heroes in this case. You go with them on the journey. You want them to succeed. They have their downfalls. They rise triumphantly at the end, but not really like that. And I think that that's where this film and Zodiac kind of come into, like, the end. It just sort of ends and peters out. So you're on this massive roller coaster ride, and then the last frame of Zuckerberg just kind of hitting refresh on his computer, waiting for his ex-girlfriend to befriend him. Like, it's a really interesting and obvious, in a way, like you know what's happening to you, but it kind of just ends in such nothing's really tied off. So it feels a bit empty. Yeah. But I think that's what you're supposed to feel at the end of the film. So it's done.
I
its
think
job.
so. It's one of the only human moments you have with Zuckerberg in the movie. So it's actually, we will talk about favourite scenes as well. That's definitely one of mine. The very end of the film. It's a shame it took 2 hours to get there, but anyway. Andrew, thoughts on the script as well?
Yeah, it's interesting. Watching it this time, it struck me that you got a couple of 50-year-old guys making a film about 20-year-olds, essentially. Yeah. These guys are brilliant, Sorkin and Fincher, and it works, but there's an element to it that doesn't, where it just feels like these guys are writing about a generation that they're not a part of, and I guess there's countless films that have that situation where older generations write about them, but I mean this is about a very cutting edge, quick generation who are incredibly technically capable. And I don't know, just it kind of works because there's the balance of the older guys and a very strongly told story. But I don't know, it loses something. When I think of, like John Hughes and Breakfast Club, like
good example.
It never jarred. Like
No.
and I don't know, like it just, to me, it jarred with me a little bit watching this film again, that, it's older guys and they're what they think young guys speak like.
Yeah. At our age now, watching this film, it's like, no, they're missing the mark a little bit. I mean, the representation of women in this movie drives me crazy, Penny. I found parts of it like revolting. Now, I don't know, again, is that me getting older and like, just like changing myself? Or is it just like, oh God, it's disgusting in parts. You know what I mean? Like it really rubbed me up the wrong way. Like really sexist stuff.
It's interesting. I've been having this discussion recently with is David Fincher a feminist or not, or does he write sort of feminist? And
Who have you been having these discussions with?
One with my partner and some other people at, sort of around the traps as well. But because this has become a very sort of interesting lens that I'm viewing things, or viewing life and viewing art through now, which is how does this relate to women? How does this relate to equality? That kind of thing. And I don't think you need to put in women or African American or any kind of like non-white middle class or upper class person, because that's not the film that this is about. So I don't think you need to sort of insert something that should be there if it wasn't there. And I think that actually makes the film stronger. It's not putting in people or ideas for the sake of the ideas. So it remains true. And I think that is probably one of the reasons why it's like, it is a bit icky. And for me, like it kept me on the outside anyway. I have no idea what Harvard life is like. I don't know what it's like to get into one of those clubs and then like what that actually means. I don't even know what it is to write code. So the entire film, I'm actually sitting on the outer anyway. So I quite like Rooney Mara's character and how she kind of sort of owns him at the end.
I was just about to say, there is one female character in this film who I almost did like jump out of my chair, like, yes, like as in like, speaking to Zuckerberg, you know what I mean? Like as in, we'll talk about her. Yeah. But I did like that
and Rashida
character.
Jones as well. So there's sort of two sort of simpering women characters that are okay, and they hold their own, but it's not a women's story.
Well, I guess, the whole kind of concept of the story is that Facebook was created from being humiliated or
from a misogynist assholes, drunken,
like the wrath of a narcissistic, would you call him? I mean, just complete self-absorbed shit.
And how many mentions of, was it hotornot.com? Or
well, I mean, that's fact, right?
And those things exist.
I know
out
they
there,
do.
so.
That was the foundation of it. Like it wasn't about, hey, let's make friends and let's all share each other's photos and love each other. It was the seed of Facebook was this horrible kind of emotional reaction to being dumped.
I don't know if that was exactly accurate. I think that they did embellish upon that.
It was embellished.
But it is absolutely showing his stripes in terms of, he's a nasty guy. Okay, how are we going to show this? Okay, this is it. So I don't know if it was actually...
Did he actually create the
face mash?
Yeah.
Or
the who's hot, who's not kind of website. That was the
Hot
initial...
or Not was already out there.
Yeah, no, he didn't create
He didn't create that one, but so I mean, so these ideas already exist out there in the world, and he was just the one that decided to really, embellish upon it and make squillions of dollars.
Yeah.
So I don't know who's smarter. Me, I'm smarter. Emotionally intelligent.
Penny, did you know about that Sorkin's little cameo in the film as well? He plays the ad executive that Zuckerberg and Savarin meet in New York.
I absolutely love that. I love it when you sort of see, I think that's sort of very Hitchcockian as well. So I kind of, I did notice him straight away. And then went straight onto YouTube and watched him when he appeared in 30 Rock with Liz Lemon as aspiring writers trying to get a job. It's hilarious.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, I think Aaron Sorkin doesn't take himself too seriously, even though he's a very serious guy. And his acceptance speech for this was quite incredible as well. So
the cinematographer of the piece, Andrew, was Jeff Cronenweth.
Yes.
Yes. So what can you tell us about this gentleman?
Well, yeah, he's kind of moved up the ranks in Fincher's team. They worked together on music videos, and I think he was second unit for a few of Fincher's features. He's also the son of Jordan Cronenweth, the legendary cinematographer of Blade Runner.
Indeed.
So
I love him already.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Fincher briefly worked with Jordan Cronenweth on Alien 3 before he became ill and had to be replaced. So, yeah, I think he's obviously known Jeff through his dad. And, yeah, he's become his go-to DOP and just, nails the Fincher aesthetic perfectly. a master kind of camera operator as well. I mean, it's just the clean camera moves in these films, and this is a perfect example. Social Network of just apparently there's only one handheld shot in the entire film.
Yeah,
and I can't think of which one it was.
Neither can I. But
that's the thing. They're so like, you just get so eased into these films. They're so easy to watch because it's just everything has been mastered. Every camera movement. Probably it's been done 77 times.
Yeah.
And, I've watched countless videos about how Fincher draws you in and makes your eyes go exactly where he wants you to go. Just little clever things like that. And it's shot on, I think probably at the time it was 2K cameras.
Most
so you've
likely,
got huge amount of information in a frame that you can kind of zoom in on, or you can pan within that image. So he just completely is the master of the image. He can do whatever he wants with it. So, but yeah, in terms of Jeff Cronenweth's work, it's full of those kind of rich kind of oranges and kind of greens. Everything's kind of got a smoky quality to it.
The Finchy yellow as well.
The real dank kind of quality. I mean, they're beautiful. It looks like Rembrandt paintings. They just really they have a certain quality which you just don't see in most films.
What did you think of the rowing regatta? Look, from a cinematography standpoint.
Yeah, it's a cool effect. I don't know if it was entirely necessary.
Is this that tilt shift kind of effect where you think you're watching a miniature, but it's actually just real?
Yeah. I think it was maybe at the time it was a bit of a thing, a bit of a fashionable kind of effect. But yeah, I'm sure there's a reason behind it, and I'm sure Fincher would have done it for that reason, but I don't know.
We'll talk about it later, but interesting music choice as well.
Yeah.
In that scene.
Yeah, I probably think that's one of my least favourite bits in the film.
It doesn't really take us anywhere, really. Yeah, it's interesting.
Have you got any thoughts on the cinematography as well, Penny?
Oh, I mean, you absolutely know you're in a Fincher film. It's so locked off and beautiful, but, still being shown exactly what to look at. You don't have to work hard at this film. You just let it wash over you, and it sort of hits you straight smack in the head every single time in terms of, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling, like you're totally being led down that garden path, but I absolutely enjoy that journey. So
let's talk about the cast, guys. Jesse Eisenberg plays Mark Zuckerberg in this film. So he was actually diagnosed with OCD. Did you guys know this?
That comes as no surprise.
Yeah, he said in an interview that one of the hardest things about the role was having to deliberately speak and behave in a manner he had struggled against in his own personality his entire life. So, look, Jesse Eisenberg is perfectly cast. We've already said this, Penny. Like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just simply saying that watching Jesse Eisenberg perform in most films is really excruciatingly hard for me. And he's the star of this film. So it really, is going to cause a problem.
It's quite unique, though, for a major film. I mean, I know it's about Zuckerberg, but for him to be the face of a major film, he just doesn't have that. It's been the only time he'd be a leading man, put it that way.
Just one more thing on Eisenberg as well. He's often linked with Michael Cera, and here's the thing. I actually find him quite, easy to watch.
Michael Cera?
Yes.
Yeah.
They often get linked together, that they've taken each other's roles at some point and stuff like that, right? I've heard this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but Michael Cera, very watchable, and find him quite entertaining, particularly in a film like Juno, which I liked quite a lot.
Well, I think he's got a good comic sensibility.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference. Jesse Eisenberg is just fucking awkward
to
watch.
Yeah.
Yes. So would you agree with some of my thoughts on Eisenberg, or how do you feel about him in this film as well?
Yeah, look, you know what you're going to get with a Jesse Eisenberg performance. It's going to be nervous with him and fretting and kind of, all these little nervous tics. It's in every one of his films. I don't have as strong a reaction against him as you do. I like him in certain films. I really liked him in Roger Dodger, which I think was his first film, and I guess I don't know, from seeing that film, and he's quite likable in that film. Again, he's nervous and geeky and horribly awkward, but I don't know. That's what he does, and I think for this film, he's not only looks a lot like Zuckerberg, but you could totally believe that would possibly be the man.
Yeah, you couldn't actually envision anyone else doing this justice.
Not really, no. I mean, it's very rare for like a kind of gawky, kind of skinny kid to be carrying a whole film, really, and he's your go-to guy for that kind of role.
What about yourself, Penny? Thoughts on Eisenberg?
Yeah, I don't really like him either. And I think that, for me, he sort of reminds me a bit of the Andy Samberg actor as well, in terms of Jesse Eisenberg he's not a likable guy, I think, that I'm not particularly interested in anything that he would have to say as a person, and that's pretty horrible. But I think it's refreshing to see actors and actresses or performers in films that aren't sort of the pin-up poster boys and girls, I think that they're actual character actors. And I quite enjoy that. Like, you don't need to be sort of good looking or particularly have an attractive personality to make it big in Hollywood. You can actually be a really great character actor. So I quite enjoyed that. But in terms of him in this film, yeah, he's a bit of a low point, but he portrays the character so well because you don't like the character that it's really, really easy to get on board straight away. So I think if it was sort of a good pin-up poster boy, it'd be like, I feel a bit bad for this guy. Whereas
he's kind of charismatic.
Yeah. Whereas in this film, you're just like,
charisma.
no, he's just awful. He just, stops. Just somebody stop him, please.
I love his backtracking as well on the opening scene with his, when his girlfriend's leaving him as well. Like, he's backtracking about, like, because she's saying that she's about to go, and the way he tries and keeps her there and stuff. Like, it's so awkward.
Come on, you don't have to study. You don't have to study. Let's just talk.
I can't.
Why?
Because it is exhausting. Dating you is like dating a stairmaster.
All I meant is that you're not likely to... Currently. I wasn't making a comment on your parents. I was just saying that you go to BU. I was stating a fact. That's all. And if it seemed rude, then of course I apologize.
I have to go study.
You don't have to study.
Why do you keep saying I don't have to study?
Because you go to BU. Want to get some food?
I am sorry you are not sufficiently impressed with my education.
I'm sorry I don't have a rowboat, so we're even.
I think we should just be friends.
I don't want friends.
I was just being polite. I have no intention of being friends with
I'm
you.
under some pressure right now from my OS class, and if we could just order some food, I think we should...
Okay, you are probably going to be a very successful computer person. But you're going to go through life thinking that girls don't like you because you're a nerd. And I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that that won't be true. It'll be because you're an asshole.
Oh, that's a horrible scene to watch. It's so uncomfortable. There's so much in that scene. It's so well done and it's so effective. Like the way he uses sound, and it's really hard to hear what they're saying, and it's completely believable that it's in a busy pub.
Yeah, hold that thought. We are talking about a particular scene in this film. It's not that one.
Yeah.
That coming up. We will talk about the audio mix. That's for sure.
Yeah, but all of those choices add to the discomfort of what's happening and the awkward performances and miscommunication. But just on Jesse Eisenberg, despite all of what we've said, I think clearly he was gunning to make him the most hideous, character in the film. And there's an example in that scene when they're renting the house in LA and they're, kind of sliding down the rope into the pool.
Yep.
He was supposed to be involved in that action.
Yeah.
But Jesse Eisenberg said he wouldn't do that.
His character wouldn't do that.
Zuckerberg wouldn't have that much fun.
Yeah.
He just watched from the sidelines.
Which is spot on.
And critiquing it.
Yeah, so you can see that obviously Eisenberg has really kind of tried to, make sure he is the most accurately horrible person.
Sort of very method actor. You wouldn't want to be around him during the filming of this.
Yeah, that'd be a tough ask.
Sorry, Adam, I'd say for you, stay away from the film The Double, where there's two Jesse Eisenbergs. It's have you seen that?
I have seen that. Yeah. It's hard work anyway.
It's very hard work. Yeah, exactly.
God. Right.
Yeah. Again, brilliant performance by a very non-likable character.
It won't be going on the watch list, Penny.
Imagine if you actually wanted to torture Adam, that would be a perfect choice of film.
That's my favourite film, Adam. I think we're going to cover that on the top 100, aren't we?
If I ever bring back The Assignment in some way or another, Andrew, please do not. If you want to, cause me some physical pain, it'd probably be the way to go.
It's no Easy A. I think Easy A was easier.
Moving on.
Andrew Garfield plays Eduardo Saverin in the film. Yeah, how do you feel about Garfield? He's obviously come a long way since this film as well.
Yeah, in some ways, he was great in, particularly effective in the Red Riding series, which was about serial killers in the UK.
Oh yeah.
In different time periods.
Mm-hmm.
Plays like a young policeman in that, and that's the first thing I saw him in. I thought he was an English actor, and yeah, I think he's a real talent, and he's done some interesting projects, and then he's done Spider-Man. And he's just, I don't know, it seems to have kind of...
And Hacksaw Ridge,
yeah, which he was pretty good in. But I don't know, I think he's a really interesting actor, and I just think I'd like to see him go back to some more interesting roles as, being kind of grabbed by Hollywood, and that tends to kind of, send you down a kind of shitty path these days.
Yeah, Eduardo in this film is one of the few characters that I actually, held on to, mainly because of the fact that I felt that he was the only one with, that he had a heart in some capacity.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? So
he cries in it, for example.
Yeah.
He shows real emotion.
Yeah, but also, when he's... when his girlfriend starts going mad and stuff like that. That was one of my favorite scenes because of Garfield's performance, the way that he tries to handle that situation. And
why does your status say single on your Facebook page? What? Why does your relationship status say single on your Facebook page?
I was single when I set up the page.
And you just never bothered to change it? What?
I don't know how.
Do I look stupid to you?
No, calm down.
You're asking me to believe that the CFO of Facebook doesn't know how to change his relationship status on Facebook?
It's a little embarrassing, so you should take it as a sign of trust that I would tell you that.
Go to hell.
Take it easy.
No, you didn't change it so you could screw those Silicon Valley sluts every time you got to
It's
some
not
mark.
even remotely true, and I can promise you that the Silicon Valley sluts don't care what anyone's relationship status is on Facebook.
You want to also strangle him, though, because he's just like,
Yeah.
you grow some balls, man, you know?
No, absolutely, Andrew, but there's just that so many people are so unlikable in this film that the likable guy does actually grab onto you a little bit, you know what I mean? But,
totally.
But I'm with you. Sometimes you want to go, for God's sakes, Eduardo, what are you doing?
Yeah, he's just
exactly,
such a nice guy, and he can't bring himself to have any kind of conflict, and he's always supportive. You know, he's the good friend.
Yeah,
tries to do everything right, and it just gets fucked over the biggest, and it's hard to watch.
There was a lot of takes as well, Andrew, in the classic scene where he walks over to Eisenberg's desk and slams the MacBook on the desk. Like, apparently there were lots of takes on that to make it just right.
Yeah,
from Fincher.
they killed a lot of MacBooks.
Mr. Sapp. Mark! Mark!
He's wired in.
Sorry?
He's wired in.
Is he?
Yes.
How about now? You still wired in?
That's where the $40 million went.
That's right.
But what about yourself, Penny? Thoughts on Andrew Garfield?
Yeah,
over here?
I like him. I think that he's okay in this film. I think that the character himself is, again, a little simpering, and just don't fuel this madman's weird, crazy ideas. You're going to get left out in the rain, which he does. He doesn't even get picked up from the airport. So in terms of Andrew Garfield's performance, I think he's sort of fairly interesting and sort of brings that to life. I think he's a fairly good foil for Eisenberg. I don't know, because it's such a weird area to be in. Like, I think that we are all sort of over the age of really understanding sort of what this film is about, like when it was actually set. I hope I'm not overstepping any lines by saying that, but I think that I can't actually imagine anybody else playing it because I don't kind of understand sort of where it's coming from, I guess. So Andrew Garfield sort of plonked in that role, works very well. And I'm interested to see where he's going to go with his career as well. Obviously picked up by Scorsese, and he's going to go on to do really great and wonderful things, I would imagine. He's a bit of a pretty boy, but he seems to work.
Justin Timberlake plays Sean Parker in the film, just like the ultimate asshole, really. What is he, the creator of Napster? I mean, Timberlake, yeah, I mean... I was
sync?
Yeah. I mean, he does... Timberlake is very, very good in anything that I've actually seen him in as an actor, because I remember when his name first started appearing in movies, I was very oh, I don't like the look of this.
Yeah.
But he's a pretty talented guy. I mean, there's no denying that.
Oh, of course.
You know what I mean? So
I loathed him when he was in NSYNC. He was
sure.
The ultimate obnoxious little turd. So perfect casting for this film.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's, he's just an irritating guy.
Yeah, he is.
And he could well be an absolutely lovely guy, but he just comes off like this kind of really obnoxious little guy.
Just like Eisenberg, I think, perfectly cast, I think, for this movie.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Who could do this better?
Absolutely.
So
but he's a huge talent, obviously. His solo music career, and he's a strong actor, and I think he really kind of anchors the film in some way. He gives it that charisma that it needs, because you're surrounded by these gawky kind of shy kids, and he comes in and he just shows all of his star power and confidence, and he kind of adds a different ingredient to the film.
A performance is working, Andrew, when during the cocaine bust scene in this film, when I literally find myself smiling at what's happening to the character. That's a good sign. That's the performance is working.
Excellent casting.
Of JT.
The performance is working. So, but yourself, Penny Timberlake.
Yeah, it's always I think a surprise when upon rewatching this film I'm like, oh, that's right, JT's in this film, and then there he sort of turns up, this schmarmy, overproduced, like he's overproduced himself, and he's, I think, the Eduardo character is right to be suspicious of him, and it plays really, really well, and I think that Justin Timberlake does a really great job in it. The dialogue is unrealistic again in that bedroom scene where he's with a girl. Like, it's unrealistic. Like, nobody would introduce themselves.
The girl
like that.
who is
Dakota Fanning.
Dakota Fanning.
Oh, yes, yeah, crazy.
Yeah, way before the 50 Shades days.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But that scene, I really don't like that scene.
No, it's pretty bad.
I think it's
super
pretty
unrealistic.
average. And the dialogue is poor. And
And I wonder if it's because of the delivery. It's the first time that we slow down. Like, it's like, oh, Sorkin's still writing all of this dialogue, but this seems different. And I'm wondering if it's the delivery, but also, the content. Like, it's such a highlight that nobody speaks like that in real life.
Yeah.
Nobody actually does that or is able to carry it off so well.
And I think that's the age gap thing. I feel so bad, like, criticizing Aaron Sorkin, who's a great screenwriter, but I just think that's a flaw. Is that it's, probably a scenario he's not been in for a few years.
Or ever? Is that what you're getting at?
I'm sure he was a ladies' man back in his day, but it's just, like that's it just doesn't sell right.
Yeah.
Plus the gratuitous girl in her underpants kind of, and like there's moments when she actually turns the anti-clockwise way so you get a better shot of her ass. Like, it's just in the real world, you wouldn't do that. It just actually turns
How do
and
you
grabs
know?
it.
You're not a teenage girl. I've been a teenage girl.
That's right.
I've never done that either.
You went the opposite direction instead of the natural.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely not one of my favorites.
I'm not a left. I can't left. I'm like Zoolander. I can't.
Well, she's got a longer leg than the other.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's casting for all.
Armie Hammer plays Cameron Winklevoss - Tyler Winklevoss in this film. So, did you guys hear that Ralph Lauren model Josh Pence actually played one of them strictly from the neck down in the film? And his face was digitally replaced with Hammer's to make them appear identical. As the two men are unrelated and look nothing alike, of course. But the two spent 10 months in twin boot camp to match one another's subtle movements and rapport. What do you think of this decision, firstly, to create the twins in this way and essentially give this dual role to, Armie Hammer? What do you think?
Once again, we're at this interesting time where why aren't we giving these roles to actual people that are living this experience?
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get into that in years to come as well in terms of this kind of discussion. But like any film that introduces me to Armie Hammer, I'm very happy with, and Armie Hammer twice, I'm doubly pleased. But I think that he does an excellent job. And when I first saw this film, I was just like, wow, how awesome is it that they could get twins that can act that well and be that convincing in a film, and then sort of looked at the credits and went, oh, it's the same guy. It's interesting. I think that's sort of where the Fincher sort of narrowing in on the absolute minutiae of a film or a performance really comes to the fore. I think that Fincher probably has OCD as well.
Do you think as audience members that we sometimes find ourselves on the side of these guys? Do you find that comes through, or do you really sort of find that you more loathe them?
Oh, yeah, I side with them a bit. I mean,
a little bit.
I don't think they're as repugnant as they probably were in real life in this film.
Probably.
I don't know if it's the Arnie Hammer charm, yeah, but
yeah.
But I mean, they just come across as kind of big dorks, like they're kind of
exactly,
and really privileged and
super privileged.
Yeah, I mean,
oh my God.
You kind of like go, oh, you can't dislike them. They're just kind of like these. They just don't know what they are.
Yeah,
to the outside world, they feel like they've got this golden run, and you don't want to see their demise, but you can totally relate to the fact that Zuckerberg, fucked them over.
Indeed. And the rowing thing as well is interesting to actually put that into this film. I know it's all character building, but I just found all of that stuff so unnecessary. If you just take in that element, whether it happened in real life or not, if you just took that out of this film, would the film really suffer at all?
No, I think you're right. We just need to know that they were rowers, and they don't have to
mention
focus.
At the end, in the text at the very end of the film, about that they finished 7th or whatever it was. And
as we said before, that rowing sequence, I just think that's just a showing off for the sake of it kind of.
Would you agree with that, Penny?
Yeah, I sort of wondered why it was in there as well, and it sort of speaks to the fact that they're overprivileged. They're not in this for the money. They're not trying to sue Zuckerberg for the money. They did have intellectual property that was stolen, and I do actually from this watching, I was really trying to hone in on who is actually in the wrong here. Did he steal their idea? And I actually think yes, he did. So I think it sort of has those overtones of these guys are going to do really, really well in life anyway, which is why I think that sort of bit about the Olympics is in the end there.
Probably, yeah.
Why does anybody sue anybody? Is it for the money, or is it for, somebody's actually done wrong by them? It's a bigger theme than I thought it would be. but yeah, I think that once again, it's putting stuff in so that they can make it an interesting and visually exciting film rather than just a drawing room drama.
And there's a contrast between the twins and Zuckerberg. Like, they kind of give a certain comic quality to the story, which it needs, a bit of balance, from the horrible awkwardness and nastiness of Zuckerberg. You have these kind of big doofuses trying to get what they believe they deserve, and the great scene with the principal or the
love that
so
scene.
Good.
It's just a wonderful, wonderful comical kind of moment.
Yeah, there's a bit of discussion coming up as well, Andrew, about the realistic scene that's based on as well, and some of the liberties that they might have took and how accurate some of it is as well. So
also Max Minghella, I think he's great in this film.
Yeah, he plays is it Devya Narendra, I think.
The kind of dynamic between the twins and him, just their conversations and
he just
arguing
wants
over
Eisenberg to burn, really.
Yeah,
doesn't he?
well, yeah.
So I sided with him.
I sided with him. Yeah, I was like, this guy speaks the truth. I'm with this guy.
Yeah.
But just trying to kind of get the Winklevi to kind of agree and just how the twins are so similar but so different in their kind of moral standpoint. And
he is so frustrated with that moral standpoint as well, isn't he? Like in the film.
It's some great moments in there between those three.
Indeed.
Or two.
Did he get paid twice as much, do you think, to be in that film?
He should have tried that on.
Yeah.
What about the digital effects with Armie Hammer as well, guys?
I think that David Fincher is one of the best users of digital effects in all of his films that you wouldn't even expect them to be in. So when your mind or your eye is drawn to, there are two Armie Hammers on screen at the same time, I think it blends really well, or it definitely did when I first watched it. Now that I'm looking out for it, I'm like, oh yeah, I can kind of see that the lighting's a little bit different there. But on the surface, I mean, he's all about digital enhancement and CGI that you just don't expect to be in there. So this is quite a nice little surprise.
Andrew, any that you want to bring up?
Rooney Mara as well.
Oh yeah, of course.
For tiny scenes that she has.
Yeah, and obviously made an impression on Fincher because she would go on to work with him a couple of years later as well.
Yeah, that's right.
But he didn't
Girl
want
with
her,
dragon tattoo.
and that's, I think. Sorry, Andrew, but for me, that's the nicest thing about seeing Rooney Mara in this film, because she's sort of this like plump faced little girl,
mousy.
Really mousy, and she's kind of standing up to him. But she's when I first saw her, she didn't make an impression at all. And then when the Girl with Dragon Tattoo came out in that Elizabeth character, she really, really wanted to play that. And Fincher really didn't want her, and she had to fight for that. And I love that about her. So when seeing this film now, I look at her and think, like she's really playing against herself in that film and comes out trumps in terms of Girl with a Dragon Tattoo.
Just her intense stares in this film would just kind of like give you chills, because you just know, you kind of, it reminds you of her character and Girl with the Dragon, just the fury of that character. And you could see totally that she had it in her. But God, I mean, what an achievement to sell that to Fincher.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a favourite scene in The Social Network?
I was thinking about this. It's like sort of favourite moments. There's two where Zuckerberg, he's having that conversation with the lawyer, and I think Cy, and he says, "Oh, it's raining," and sort of it breaks the content of that scene, and you kind of just realise what a weirdo this guy is. But the other bit was just that sort of short comic relief where he slows down the proceedings by going, hang on a second, is it 18,000 plus 1,000? Yeah, that's 19,000. Like that's just like sort of very nice filmmaking in that, breaking the tension, showing the character. It's humour for the sake of humour. And yeah, I just really like that moment. But in terms of overall scenes, I think Fincher has this amazing way of just presenting you a film and you're just completely absorbed by it. And for me, it's all one big giant scene. I'm just like, oh, this is amazing. And I just sort of want to be in it. But yeah, some great little moments in there as well.
Andrew?
The smashing of the MacBook scene.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful scene.
It's almost like a kind of therapeutic kind of moment where there's all this tension and frustration, and it just gets released in that smash. And, you know, that whole sequence where he's just been basically manipulated and he's realizing he's been frozen out of the company. Timberlake just kind of prodding him at his lowest point.
Yeah.
You know, just the horribleness of that and just the cruelty of these kids. You know, it nailed youth, I think. You know, for knocking it earlier about the age gap between the writers and the subject matter. that's nailed in the kind of, these are just young kids who aren't men yet, and they're just kind of horrible to each other, and it's like high school basically, and it just nailed that kind of dynamic.
The only thing that would have made that MacBook scene a bit better is if, rather than on the desk, he did it on Eisenberg's head, you know, like you smashed it down like
and Timberlake in one fell smash, just like bang bang.
Yeah.
Let's test this thing out.
That's harsh but true. But
Yeah. Wow, the rage is really showing through.
Just kidding. But just quickly, guys, the scene in the club. I just want to talk about the audio mix. Now, we spoke about this just briefly, Penny, just before we started recording today. Impressions of it.
Don't be impressed by all this. I read your blog. You know, no, that was for web creators. You know why I started Napster? The girl I loved in high school was with the co-captain of the varsity lacrosse team, and I wanted to take her from him. So I decided to come up with the next big thing. I didn't know that. Napster wasn't a failure. I changed the music industry for better and for always. It may not have been good business, but it pissed a lot of people off. And isn't that what your face mash was about?
Yeah, I've never been able to go to a club and be able to have any kind of conversation like that.
It's realistic.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear your thoughts, because it's once again, it's the, okay, how are we going to shift these characters into different situations so it's visually and audibly pleasing, but it does kind of grate a little bit. Are you concerned about the content or the way that it was actually presented on screen?
As it was written on the screenplay, I'm sure it would have worked fine. I mean, from what I could hear, Eisenberg and Timberlake, you know, the conversation was, you know, quite an important part of the film, really, and the relationship between the characters. But before I chip in, Andrew, do you have an impression of that scene?
Again, I think that's another awkward scene where it's kind of older dudes, you know, kind of giving you an idea of what a club that kids go to is. It just, I mean, hey, I'm not, you know, going to clubs. I don't know if I can know what they are, but it's just kind of, I don't know, it just didn't ring true to me. It just seemed exactly that. Like, it's just 50-year-old guys. This is what the kids are into. Just the music as well. The music, I don't know if it's just, maybe it was big back in when the film came out, but it seemed really dated, that music.
Was it a song or was it?
Was like some kind of house music or something.
Okay.
And the dancing on the tables and stuff, it just seemed really kind of formulaic or something.
Yeah.
But you're mainly referring to the sound.
I'm talking about the audio mix. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I can understand why Fincher does it. He wants a sense of reality to it, but it's kind of irritating.
First of all, on that scene, it is too long as well, right? But I think that maybe because of the fact of how distracted I was by the audio mix, maybe it felt longer than it actually is as well. I hated it. I thought it was fucking terrible. Sorry. What was he doing? I want to know what the intention was, because it was driving me up the wall. And, you know, you were saying, Penny, that like it's probably what it would really sound like in the club. In the world of the movies, though.
Oh no! So in terms of like going to clubs like that, you cannot have those kind of conversations. But
I know.
But once again, I think that makes you sort of feel like you know that you're watching a film, because you're watching it going, I can barely hear myself in a shopping centre, let alone a nightclub. But it takes you out and then draws you back in. And for me, it's serviceable in the fact that, you know, you've got Mark Zuckerberg, who's completely out of his depth. Like, he would not be going into those clubs by himself. So he has to have JT's character in order to sort of pull him along through that. So I kind of like what it's doing. It's what it's showing us. But I'm loving your rant about this. Please continue.
I just don't know. It was just that entire scene was just shitting me, because I was trying to listen to what they were saying, because I was identifying that what they're actually talking about is pretty integral to the plot of, like, you know, what's going to happen next and stuff like that. And because of Fincher's and the sound team's choice to make it like realistic and to drown it out with the music, so it was like almost like that was the intention. But that was so frustrating to me. It was
especially when you know that the guys involved are some of the best in the industry. Like, you know, the Ren Kleiss is
because you knew it was
genius sound designer.
You knew it was a creative choice.
Yeah, completely. They've spent good time making this hard for you to hear.
Yeah. But it was like, you know, did they want the audience to do that? But if they did, it did not work for me, is what I'm saying. Is in, like, I was just frustrated.
Yeah.
I was trying to watch it like we all watch normal films. So in a scene like that, the sound mix wouldn't be like that. It would be, the dialogue would be the priority, because of
totally, yeah. And I can understand, as an artistic choice, it makes sense if it's in a small moment. Like,
yeah, but it was quite a long scene.
It's a long scene of dialogue, and yeah, like that whole story about, you know, the Victoria's Secret guy's story is really interesting, and it's great dialogue, and it's, yeah, I mean, you're straining to hear it. I just think it's a bit self-conscious of Fincher. I just think that sometimes he just, you know, plays with his toys so to speak, a little bit too much sometimes and overthinks things.
I can't think of another example in a film that I've seen in recent years in which there's been a scene that's been so distracting because, I mean, Andrew, I automatically started thinking about the fact of like, yeah, I've seen this before, but it's in very, very low budget student productions in which you can tell that they obviously haven't got the budget to, like, if they're in like a busy environment, they haven't got the budget to record the sound properly.
Yeah.
Like something that we would have made back in high school or something if we went into a busy environment or something like that, right?
But
that is the only other example in recent times in which I can sort of go, that's the only other time in watching a film in which I've experienced this sort of like oral like sensation.
Well,
but had it,
we talked about one in earlier Arrival. Remember, there's those key moments we've discussed where it's just like it's a key almost word that someone says. It's just like a bird flies by and goes, yeah. Just you're trying to fucking, it's like, for fuck's sakes, you know, just like, why? Why would you do that?
Yeah. The treasure's buried where? Oh, I missed that integral moment,
Yeah, like it's a strange kind of...
So you guys kind of share what I'm saying, or that you didn't get as...
Well, I think that probably in this day and age when I'm watching, well, especially watching these films that are kind of like old-ish films, I'm watching them on my own, in my own house, where I've got my hand on the volume control anyway. So anything that I'm missing or anything that I want to turn down,
you adjust it.
I adjust it. So I'm actually sort of interacting with the film as it goes on. But yes, I remember reaching for the remote at that time and turning the volume down because it was a bit of an assault. I can't really remember what it was like watching it in the cinema. But in terms of like filmmaking, I'm thinking, is he trying to... You are literally having to lean in at that moment. So is that because you're leaning in with the character? Is that because you're leaning in with them about to embark on this journey, you know, even further? And for me, even the initial opening scene is so loud and that dialogue is so fast that like I had to sort of restart this film a number of times to kind of try and get the sound right. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. You understand what's going on regardless of the dialogue in a way, which is weird for a Sorkin film, but you understand what's going on even if you're not particularly being carried along with it at the same time. So I wonder if it's just because you're leaning in, you can kind of visually see that the characters are sort of forming this greater bond. I wonder if it actually matters what they're talking about, or is it sort of you could almost turn the dialogue off at that point and go,
so I think you nailed it. I think he's such a clever filmmaker that he's fully aware of what he's doing to his audience. And it's almost like a visceral thing. Like even like the very first scene in the pub, like it's so jarring and so hard to hear and so fast.
Yeah.
Like I've probably seen it about 4 or 5 times this film and you know, just watching it for this podcast, I still don't know 100% what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You just miss chunks of it. But I think it's Finch just setting the tone. It's just like, this is the film. It's going to be dialogue this quick. And it's almost kind of like exposing you to it straight off. You're not lulling you in. It's just kind of like you're going to have to be on to watch this film. And that's the kind of quality of his filmmaking, I think.
Yeah, I can't imagine I can't imagine if it's a mistake. I think that it's probably frustrating, but it's not a mistake. Fincher wouldn't make a mistake like that. But it's interesting to sort of look at it in the overall grand scheme of things.
Do you guys get or did you pick up from the film at all who the movie star on campus is?
Oh yeah, I didn't really know who that was.
Macaulay Culkin?
That would have been awesome. But in one scene, a character remarks that Mark was the biggest guy on campus and lists several different types of impressive people who were also at Harvard at the time in order to emphasize how impressive Mark's fame was. Included in this list is an unnamed movie star. It's not gospel, but like it's predicted because she was there.
Ooh.
There was Natalie Portman.
Oh, really?
It was, yeah. So, because she actually graduated from Harvard in 2003, the same year that Mark Zuckerberg created FaceMash, and a year before he launched the Facebook.
Wow.
You know, so she also apparently offered the filmmakers some advice on Harvard student culture at the time as well. So, even though it's never fully come out, I think people just drew the lines and said, well, that's obviously who they were referring to. Because
interesting.
In 2003, this was a couple of Star Wars prequels in, wasn't it, Andrew?
Yeah.
So, so she was quite a big deal at the time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Did she blame those on Mark Zuckerberg as well?
Yeah.
I've been looking for a person to blame them on, so I guess we've got George Lucas.
Did you think that the film was clear, guys, about how Mark actually betrayed Eduardo as well? Like what actually took place? Because...
I would imagine it was a very fictionalized and stylized version of characters that probably all very unlikable. So I can't.
Yeah, he essentially dilutes Eduardo's stock in Facebook. I mean, that's the short version of sort of what happened. I mean, apparently Eduardo's share of the company went from 33%, second only to Mark's 51%, down to an insignificant 0.03%.
I would bust a MacBook if that had happened to me as well.
Which effectively removed him from power of the
Yeah.
company when you go down that much, you know. And then this obviously enraged him and he sued Mark, settling for an undisclosed amount of money out of court and having his name restored as co-founder of the site to this day, apparently.
But
Have you looked at it? Have you looked at the masthead and gone, that's his name?
no.
The film hasn't done its job then.
But seems a little bit of a stretch that the reason why he did such a horrible thing to his friend who's done nothing but support him was because he got into a club that he didn't. Like, maybe that's the man. I mean, that's the way the film sells Zuckerberg.
It does, yeah.
But is there more to the story? Does anyone know? You know, maybe Eduardo was not so pure of heart as he's seen in the film. I mean, it just seems like that's a major kind of fuck you.
I think the film leaves a lot of ambiguity there too, doesn't it?
It seems like that's all it is. It's just he was jealous of him moving up the ranks, which is something he wanted to be in so much, was be in a club. So he was bitter about it and didn't seem that was enough.
Yeah, would you agree with that, Penny? Or?
Yeah, but I'm so far removed over, you know, we live in Australia so far away from, you know, what the societal great universities are. Like, it doesn't, for me, it's just like Harvard, Yale, aren't they all good? Like, isn't it good that you go to university? Is one better than the other? So I don't really understand all of that kind of culture, alpha, beta, gamma, whatever, you know, house kind
pretty
of
damn toxic, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I don't, from my understanding, we don't have that in Australia. You know, if you go away to university, you room at a place at Melbourne Uni, but there's not that kind of, you know, massive cultural, societal lift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, all of that seemed to, like, I was really on the outer anyway. So, by the way, if somebody was to say to me, oh, I've got an idea, let's work on it together, we work on it together, and then you steal some of my ideas, I probably don't have it in me to sue you. I just don't, like, that to me is just a weird thing anyway. I just, like, intellectual property is such a bizarrely kind of ethereal thing anyway. I find it really strange that these, you know, young people, I guess, are so confident and know the law so much that they're going to go after something and get it. And
if it's squillions of dollars, though, that they've made as a result, would you want to?
I don't know. I just sort of, yeah, but I kind of just think, no, it probably wasn't my idea. Yeah, he probably did do some work. Oh, yeah, I can't
That's just because you're a lovely person.
Okay. All right, and that's what we're getting out of today's podcast. Don't take advantage of me.
But this might lead nicely, guys, into just quickly how accurate the film actually is. So this seems to be a matter for some debate. Surprise, surprise. As always will be, you know. But Mark Zuckerberg claims that the movie is almost entirely fictional, except for in the broader sense that he, Dustin Moskovich, and Eduardo Saverin created Facebook while students at Harvard. In particular, he disputes implications that his desire for revenge on his ex-girlfriend or to get into a final club influenced the creation of Facebook. And of course, he denies that the Winklevoss twins had any hand in inspiring the creation of Facebook. Instead, he insists that the real creation story is much more boring and banal. Screenwriter Aaron Sorkin and director David Fincher insist that the film is very accurate. Sorkin has said that it is not fictional at all, merely dramatized is the way that he put it. I would love to have sat next to Zuckerberg while watching this film. You know what I mean? Like, I would have loved to sort of feel the energy of his portrayal in this movie, knowing that it was going to be a major release.
And it's interesting to have a biopic of somebody so young as well. Like, definitely. It's such a, you know, it's at the start of their career as well. And you know, maybe we could go in for a sequel.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Just a bit of trivia here, guys, from The Social Network. So the opening breakup scene with Jesse Eisenberg and Rooney Mara ran 8 script pages. And how's this, Andrew? It took 99 takes.
Jesus.
What can you say? Bloody hell. That's a lot of Eisenberg.
I've actually got all 99 of them. Would you like to watch them?
Yeah. Oh, didn't put that on the disc, did they? Outtakes. But Mark Zuckerberg originally planned never to see this movie, apparently. He ended up taking several of his employees to see it. He later remarked that despite some of the film's inaccuracies, they got his clothing right. Thank God for that.
I read that as well. Yeah, his hoodies and whatnot. Yeah, great.
It's funny. That's the only thing that he.
That's a silver lining for him.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of an arsehole, and the clothing was accurate. Some nice hoodies in there.
When Mark is posting on his art final under an alias, he is using the alias Tyler Durden, a main character from Fight Club, another David Fincher film, of course. Did you pick that up at all, Andrew?
I did not.
There you go. Justin Timberlake was the only actor who met his real-life character Sean Parker before the founding of Facebook and this film. Armie Hammer and Josh Pence met their real-life characters, the Winklevoss twins, after filming. The twins enjoyed Hammer and Pence's performance so much that they attended a couple of screenings of the film.
I bet they did. They come
Yeah.
off pretty good, I'd say. I mean, they're sort of
They probably laughed
arseholeish,
their
but-
heads off.
Yeah.
They were probably loving it. The real Lawrence H. Summers called the film's portrayal of his meeting with the Winklevoss twins fairly accurate. He went on to say, "I've heard it said that I can be arrogant. If that's true, I surely was on that occasion." One of the things you learn as a college president is that if an undergraduate is wearing a tie and jacket on Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock, there are two possibilities. One is that they're looking for a job and have an interview. The other is that they're an asshole.
Great.
This was the latter case. Rarely have I encouraged such swagger, and I tried to respond in kind. There,
That scene was perfect.
Despite the fact that director David Fincher has been a big proponent of digital filmmaking since Zodiac in 2007, this is his first film to have been completely shot digitally. Both Zodiac and The Curious Case of Benjamin Button had certain shots and segments shot on film. So this is the full digital Fincher at work here.
Yeah, and he hasn't gone back since.
That's it. So, Andrew, you mentioned you had this earlier, but in regards to the DVD, Blu-ray or Ultra HD releases of The Social Network, there was the 2011 Blu-ray and DVD with 2 audio commentaries, which seems to be a bit of a Fincher staple, more than one commentary on the film. One is with director David Fincher himself, discussing the picture's tone, the casting process, and the quality of the performances, the importance of combining dramatic flair with realism to the movie, the special effects, and more. He does spend some time defending certain points of the movie in this commentary, and parts of the track feel like he's sort of walking on a tightrope, which isn't helped by the bleeping of cuss words in the commentary as well, which was interesting decision here. But have you heard this?
Yeah, well, that's pretty much the reason I bought it. Is like his commentaries are fascinating.
You find them fascinating, yeah.
Yeah, I just if anyone wants insight from a great filmmaker on how to make films, he's so unpretentious and he's so open with his ideas and processes. It's fascinating and deeply inspirational. So yeah, all of his commentaries I have.
I've
to
never
buy.
wanted a commentary more than the Alien 3 David Fincher commentary that will never happen.
Maybe you never say never. You never know.
Yeah, I agree, but it's just one of my holy grail commentaries. That's for sure.
Surely he's gotten over it by now.
Oh, it's enough
He
time.
is the phoenix rising from the ashes from that film. Anyway, throwback to this film, The Club.
Nice. There was a pause, Penny, but
Yeah,
we
it's
got
fine.
there. We got there. The other audio commentary is with writer Aaron Sorkin and the cast, including Jesse Eisenberg, Andrew Garfield, Justin Timberlake, Armie Hammer, and Josh Pence. They sort of discuss Fincher's style, recount anecdotes from the set, speak on the quality of the score and how it relates to the themes and style of the movie, etc., etc. I haven't heard this one. Andrew, did you ever listen to it, or
No.
you just wanted to hear Fincher?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah,
He's my man.
So it's hard to say exactly how good this one is, but it's definitely on there for the fans. And then on the second disc as well, we've got How Did They Ever Make a Movie of Facebook? 1.5 hour long 4-part documentary series. Have you seen this? Or
Yeah, a while ago.
Yeah.
It's a bit rough, but
When it was newer, yeah.
Another great thing about Fincher Blu-rays, they're very in depth, and
he's
the
all
making
over them.
ofs aren't your normal fluffy kind of marketing thing. It's really
He makes sure that, like, if you purchase one of his films, that you get your money's worth for sure.
Yeah, and you get to see him work, which is fascinating, and just how on the top of your game you have to be on a Fincher set.
Jeff Cronenweth and David Fincher on the visuals. There's a little 7-minute documentary there. Angus Wall, Kirk Baxter, and Ren Kleiss on post. A look at the process of completing the film once the shoot has concluded, taking 268 hours of footage and whittling it down to the best 2 hours to tell a complete and cinematically engaging story. There's a couple of documentaries on the music, which we'll talk about in a second, Andrew. Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross, and David Fincher on the score. A 20-minute long look at the score there. In the Hall of the Mountain King, Music Exploration, a supplement that allows listeners to compare an early, ultimately scrapped version of the music accompanying that Henley Regatta sequence, alongside what would ultimately make it into the final cut of the film. Now, I'd actually like to check this out at some point just because of how I felt about that scene. But there's something here, Andrew, as well, 5 minutes long, Swarmatron, where Trent Reznor introduces viewers to one of the unique instruments that plays a critical role in the film's soundtrack. So that's on the Blu-ray as well.
Yeah, it's for the real aficionados, that piece.
Indeed. So streaming, Penny, what have we got for The Social Network?
Currently not on Netflix. It currently is available on Stan, and as Andrew, I think, invited everybody, it's available at his house to watch with him on Blu-ray. But yeah, it is on Stan. I think it's just popped up quite recently on Stan.
Nice one. Thank you, Penny. So yeah, we just mentioned it, Andrew, but I think one of the You know, one of the things that's dating fairly well about this film personally is Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's score to the film, and it obviously did very well as well. So what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think at the time it was quite an interesting...
At the time.
Well, yeah, like his previous composers have been, well, Howard Shore has been his go-to man for the earlier part of his career, and then he dealt with Alexandre Desplat, the French composer, for Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and then obviously in Fight Club there was the Dust Brothers. So, yeah, he's kind of experimented a little bit with his music side of things in his films, and then he's now seemed to have settled on Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. You've got a hold on the S when you pronounce his name. I heard that.
And for the few people out there who don't know who Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are part of, they were part of a very successful band.
Nin, I believe it's called. Nine Inch Nails, which, yeah, certainly. I mean, he's a brilliant musician, Trent Reznor, and I mean, I'm not knowledgeable on the technicality of music, but just I don't know, there's so much going on in these sounds. Like, he is a guy who, in that segment in the Blu-ray, you know, he talks about that piece of equipment. He's just, you know, you just see all these buttons and flashy lights. It's like a bloody Star Trek ship, you know. There's just so much detailed work that goes into these scores. Are they great listening experiences? For me personally, it loses me a little bit away from the film, but I certainly think they add a real coal, icy, kind of unhuman quality to the film.
Have you heard the scores to the other David Fincher films that Reznor and Ross have scored, like the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and Gone Girl, etc.?
I actually own the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Okay.
And that's 3 discs of lots of murky, ominous Reznor tones. Yeah, and it's probably it's very interesting. Like it's all very interesting music, but it's you've got probably a window of about 30 minutes, and you go insane if you keep.
Very popular part of this film though was the score.
Yeah,
it did exceptionally well.
Yeah, for sure. Oscar winning, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of like a shift, I guess, in film music, and that it was becoming a lot more focused on the electronic side of things, and musicians from a different field could become film composers, and were, as a result, a lot more desired by filmmakers. So, yeah, a bit of a pioneering moment, I guess, in film music. A lot of film music aficionados turn their nose up at this kind of music. They just find it non-music. I can see a side of that, but I think in terms of its context in the film, I think it's incredibly effective.
I find that interesting, the whole non-music thing, you know what I mean? Like, it
the
seems very snobbery.
It's like you've got to have an orchestra for it to be. It's a little bit old school in its thinking, but I think if it's engaging and thematically effective, then that's fine.
There was a soundtrack release at the score as well, 19 tracks, practically the whole thing, I would think.
Yeah.
Most of it.
I'd say he probably they composed probably hours upon hours of music, and being the digital age. But I think it's a pretty concise release. Yeah, and as I said, did really well, this soundtrack release, like on the US charts, like the Billboard charts. Like, it reached like #1 on top soundtracks on the US Billboard, but it also reached like #3 on the top alternatives albums, #2 on the top independent albums, top digital albums #3, rock albums #6. You know, so it charted really, really well. So people obviously connected to this score. Yeah. In and out of the film, I think. Yeah, no, yeah. I think it's got that right balance of it's kind of got a musicality to it, but it's also got this kind of otherworldly kind of sounds to it, which, you know, it's almost like the inside of Zuckerberg's brain. You know? It's so good. It's so true, yeah. But, have you got any thoughts on the music, Penny?
I just love that. So when we move from the opening sequence, and I actually jotted this down when I was writing it. So the opening sequence has obviously a bunch going on, really great opening music, then we're in the bar, and then when he runs across the courtyard and the credits are rolling, or the quad or whatever, he's running back to his dorm room and the credits are rolling, and you can hear that Reznor kind of sound, and all of the credits are sort of coming up on screen. I feel like you're really in the hands of a good film. Like, for me, like I'm settling in, I understand what's going on, I'm in really good hands. We've got Trent Reznor on the soundtrack. Like, I'm in, like, buckle in, I'm in. Just on that with the credits, just before we move on, Penny, as well, like, this film, like, I do credit this movie's credit sequence for being at the start. Like, I'm a real advocate for the main credits being at the beginning of a movie, because I don't know, any film that we've seen in the last 5 years, every credit sequence is at the end now, and there's a formula with the way it works, you know what I mean? But I do still,
really warm to a film where the credit sequence is all at the beginning like it is in this one.
Yeah.
It's an interesting idea. I think that I have a very good friend actually hates when you break. It's like you have 5 minutes of the film and then you break for a credit sequence because it sort of takes you out of that film. But for me, this film actually really works because it's part of, you know that you're watching a film, as I've said several times. You're very much watching a film. So you're sitting down to watch a film. There's unrealistic dialogue. You're in a weird enhanced, why would I be watching a story about Facebook anyway? But because it integrates action into the credit sequence and it's sort of, you're just being taken along with this journey. It's almost like subtitles in a way. So I think it really, really works very well in this film. And yeah, for me, it really, it shows the state of play and you're ready for that ride.
Okay, guys, sequel, prequel, remake, reboot, or leave it alone. Andrew?
Look, if there's something else happens in the Zuckerberg story of life, then I'm sure a film will be made about it.
Yeah, but do you want to see it?
He's an intriguing guy, and I feel like there is more to happen to this guy. And obviously, he's going through a tough year, being hauled in front of lots of boards and whatnot, and losing squillions of dollars.
Yeah, my heart bleeds. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know where he's heading. I think Facebook is on the way down for sure. So yeah, I mean, I could easily see a sequel coming out of this.
Okay, Penny.
Yeah, I don't think that this needs anything more. I'm surprised that it sort of got made in the first place, and I was really surprised that it was a Fincher film, but I'm so glad that it was. I don't think there's any need for it. I mean, even if you were to tell me that there was a documentary about Mark Zuckerberg, I probably wouldn't watch it. I'd probably have my own bias against it. But in terms of like, are there other films, like are we interested in the rise of Instagram or LinkedIn? Not really.
Not really.
No, I just don't really care that much about it.
Well, look at the Steve Jobs film. I don't know if
Another Sorkin film.
Yeah, that's right.
Was that the Aston Kutcher movie?
There was that one, but that wasn't the.
No, that wasn't the good one.
No, there was the one with Fassbender. What was it called?
I haven't seen that one.
Jobs.
So yeah, I mean, again, like I think it's the draw card is Fincher for this film. Otherwise, it's very dry material. So if he made a sequel, I would see it.
Oh yeah, with a caveat that if David Fincher were to make any sequel or any film, I'll probably watch it.
Yeah, that's right. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
I'm going to say leave it alone.
Expand.
What about the Jesse Eisenberg film?
The rise and rise of Jesse Eisenberg.
Jesse's girl?
In regards to the awards for The Social Network, it obviously won the Oscar for Best Writing Adapted Screenplay to Aaron Sorkin, Best Achievement in Film Editing to Kirk Baxter and Angus Wall, and Best Achievement in Music Written for Motion Pictures Original Score to Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. And it was nominated for Best Motion Picture of the Year, Best Performance by an Actor in a Leading Role to Jesse Eisenberg. Good on him.
Best Nervous Tick.
Best Nervous Tick. Best Achievement in Directing, David Fincher. Best Achievement in Cinematography to Jeff Cronenweth. And Best Achievement in Sound Mixing to the Sound Team. And at the Golden Globes in 2011, it won Best Director Motion Picture David Fincher, Best Screenplay Motion Picture Aaron Sorkin, Best Original Score Motion Picture to Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and Best Motion Picture Drama. And it was nominated at the Golden Globes, Best Performance by an Actor in a Motion Picture Drama to Jesse Eisenberg, and Best Performance by an Actor in a Supporting Role in a Motion Picture to Andrew Garfield, which was an interesting nomination as well. Okay, so the Rotten Tomatoes website certifies The Social Network fresh with a score of 96%, 287 positive and only 13 negative. So I'm definitely in the minority here, and I have, completely accepted that as well. Rotten Tomatoes audience score of 86% with an average rating of 4.1 out of 5 and an IMDb score of 7.7 out of 10. So there's no doubt that this film is popular. There's no doubt about that. So quickly, guys, the top 100. Does this deserve to be there, and is number 81 a fitting position for it, Andrew?
I don't think it'd be in my 100.
Yep.
I think it's a strange choice. I think there's plenty of other Fincher films that you could squeeze in there.
Yeah, and there are. There are a few more coming up.
Yeah.
But you'd probably squeeze in a few more if you could. But
yeah, well, I think if you're going to put Fincher films in the 100, then besides the ones that are coming up, I think there's another couple there that would take its place.
Penny?
I probably would actually have this in this and my top 100, just purely because I think it's such a well-crafted film. In terms of screenwriter and director coming together to make a very bland story very interesting, I think that it deserves accolades. And I think that the public have spoken.
Would you guys be surprised if I said no?
Let me go back to the start of this podcast. Let me just so I can make it clear.
I might play it again.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, just a recap.
No, it's not. It's not in my top 100. It's nowhere near it. It's not going to be a surprise to anyone that's listening, that's for sure. So, traditional 5-star review system. It's a tradition to start over here with Mr. McCaskill.
I give it 4 stars for the achievement. It's just a really well-made film. I think from a filmmaking standpoint, it's a solid 4. For an enjoyment experience, it's not one I turn to often. It's probably one of the lesser Fincher films, in my opinion. But he's such a brilliant filmmaker that, it's hard to mark him down because he always makes a good film, despite the curious Benjamin Button. But so it'd be 4 stars for me for the achievement.
But would you recommend it?
Oh, for sure, I would. I think
Okay.
it's definitely an intelligent film for anyone to see.
Cool. Penny?
Yeah, I'd highly recommend this film. I think that, and in terms of the Oscars as well, it lost out in a lot of those awards to The King's Speech, which was obviously a very important film at the time. We're not covering it in the top 100, I think.
No, it's definitely not in the top 100.
But I think that it was, for me, that was a very enjoyable film as well. It's quite weird to sort of pitch these two films against one another, but I'm really, really glad that Sorkin won for Best Adapted Screenplay. I think that the dialogue and the writing of this film really brings it to life, and Fincher's deft hand at directing. So for me, I would give this, I would say between 4 and 4.5. It sort of sits very, very high up there in terms of, I was really quite keen to watch this film again, even though I don't like the subject matter. It's definitely not the best Fincher work at all by any stretch. And I'm really surprised that in reading some of the commentary out there on the internet, that this rates the most high out of any Fincher film, whereas for me, there are so many others. So I'd give it, between 4 and 4.5.
Good stuff. Thanks, Penny. Guys, can I do my final rant? Can I just get it out of the way? And
I'm just going to stiff drink.
I only used this medium a few times in the life of this podcast so far to really get stuck into something. But like I said to Penny before recording today, I really just speak from the heart with this stuff. You know what I mean? I don't overanalyze it. I write it as I see it. So I'll get out my final words. And like you guys have said, you've lifted the film up to the level in which most people feel it deserves to be. You know what I mean?
And so I'll tear it down.
I'm going to tear it down. No.
I can see the tidal wave coming.
All right, guys, the final word. Okay, so I get that this is objectively great, but I fucking hated it. All right, so watching Jesse Eisenberg, Jesus Christ, you're annoying. All right, so I actually think this film is really overrated. It definitely benefits from Fincher's direction, and there's no doubt about that, albeit I think it's wasted on this story. Okay. I'm sorry, everybody, but I hate spiteful nerds. I hate spiteful nerds who hate women, and I hate spiteful nerds who hate women and chase coin. All right? So that's ultimately the part of this film that rubbed me the wrong way. A movie doesn't have to have likable protagonists, but it helps, especially when the characters are also largely uninteresting as people. It's not that the actors are doing a poor job at any stage. Most of them are great, okay? It's just that there's no meat there. There's theoretically plenty of drama in the story, but drama requires personalities to respond to, and these characters don't provide them. I don't know the actual people, obviously. Perhaps they're all flat characters in real life as well, but there's scarcely anything in any of these people that sparked an interest or a human connection with me. Zuckerberg himself is depicted as being so detached as to be essentially a low-functioning sociopath. This is intentional, but none of them would be considered fully functional human beings among a typical gathering of people. These are people who are defined by their conflict with little else to flavour the performances. It ends up being a fairly tedious process to watch them hash it all out in court. It is difficult to care about the conflict when one doesn't care about the people involved. So I actually think this viewing, it's one of the most wretched films I've seen in a while. A celebration of the worst aspects of our culture. My favourite moment was the last minute and a half where the evil, unfeeling, nerdy genius shows that, like most humans, he isn't all bad, okay? It's a pity that there was 2 hours of the film before that.
But don't you think it hangs him up to dry? Like, I mean, it sells him as that, but then it ends with he gets his just deserves.
And that's what lifted it from nothing to something, like for me. You know what I mean?
That's ironic that you hate it so much, but clearly the filmmakers are in agreement with you. Like they're selling you a despicable character, which is what they think, and then they kind of gets the payoff at the end.
But do I want to 2 hours of that, Andrew? Like, is in maybe not in 2018.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So that's how I felt about it. So against the grain, guys. Social Network 2 stars, mainly for Fincher, right?
Brutal.
And Fincher and the soundtrack to an extent as well, and the performances, but I can't recommend a film that I give 2 stars to, but most people have probably already seen it. So, I'm not intending to sell it to anybody. I'm happy to be the dissenting voice this time around. That's for sure. But it doesn't come out that much, Andrew. So I was happy to this time. But just quickly, guys, where to find us. You can find us at realchat.com.au. Also on our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Ironically.
Awkward.
Yeah. Jesse Eisenberg, don't reach out. Please don't give us 5 stars.
But help out Real Chat, please.
Yeah,
do something.
Do reach out.
Please.
God, Jesse left your game.
And we have a Patreon account as well. Mark, I'd love to hear from you in regards to that one. But and iTunes reviews as well. I know I mentioned at the beginning, guys. So a few more of them would be very much appreciated at this stage. So that's it, guys. Thanks very much for coming out and speaking about The Social Network. Andrew, thank you very much indeed.
Always
a pleasure, mate. And Penny, thank you very much.
Please don't poke me.